everyone, and welcome back to Lady Jane Books. Today I'm doing a Kindle book haul. Now, I know what you're going to say, Lady Jane, you said you weren't buying any more books, and I didn't actually buy them. I used a gift certificate, and technically it was at the end of 2020, before my 2021 no-buy, so it applies, it works. Okay, just go with me on this. I have been a total sucker for all of the Kindle Deals of the Day books, so I have the horrible habit of checking the deals of the day, seeing what's for like $1.99, saying, gee, I think I heard of that book, and then clicking buy. But they all are on gift cards, so technically I'm not in the wrong here. I've been acquiring quite a few Kindle books, so I wanted to share them and kind of document for myself whether I'm going to read them or not, so here we go. The first book that I purchased is Bitter Greens by Kate Forsyth. I don't know too much about this one. I think it is a historical fiction type of novel, and I believe that it has something to do with Rapunzel and the woman who penned Rapunzel and her backstory, along with a retelling of Rapunzel in history. So it sounds really good. I'm not usually one for historical fiction, but I love this cover. Look how gorgeous it is. And so I decided that I'm gonna give it a whirl and purchased it for a whopping 99 cents. The next book that I purchased is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. Ooh, that rhymes. I like that. I absolutely adored Sarah J. Maas's Court of Thorns and Roses series, and I'm so excited that the new installment is going to come out in February. Fingers crossed, I'm so excited. And I know that people either like this one more or just as much as ACOTAR, so I saw it on sale and I bought it. I should say that I bought all of these in the bargain section of Kindle for less than $2.99. Usually it's 99 cents or $1.99, just so you're clear. Lady Jane is thrifty. Sarah J. Maas is really well known for her fantasy series and very hot fantasy series. And that's what I really liked about A Court of Thorns and Roses, is that it blended fantasy with heavy character development as well as some steaminess. So I'm hoping that this series will bring the same thing to me. I believe this is about a girl who committed some type of crime, and in order to get a pardon, the crown prince tells her, okay, well, I'll give you your freedom if you act as my champion for this game or assassin quest or something. I'm not quite sure. And so I think this one's very action-packed because I believe Selena is an assassin and she has to go through all of these tests. So this seems so promising. I'm really excited about it. Cannot wait to dive into another Sarah J. Maas book. The third book that I purchased is called The Stillwater Girls by Minka Kent. I believe that this is a psychological thriller, which I have been really into psychological thrillers lately. I don't know what it is. Usually I'm all about the horror, but lately I've been just really wanting to get into some good psychological stuff. I actually don't know too much about this one. I believe it's about a family who lives off the grid for years, and suddenly one of the children becomes sick, and the mother and the child go for help, but then I think they don't return, and suddenly there's this mystery of where they go and what's going to happen to the other kids. I think there's some great mystery surrounding why they had to live off the grid in the first place. So this sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. I believe that Noelle Gallagher read this last year, and unfortunately she was really disappointed. So now I'm feeling kind of weird about it because I'm like, well, if Noelle Gallagher doesn't like it, am I going to like it? I don't know. We shall see. But that is The Stillwater Girls by Minka Kent. The next book that I purchased is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I saw this on Holly by Golly's books, and she was just raving about it. She absolutely loved it. So when I saw it on sale, I knew this was my time to shine. And I bought that like you wouldn't believe. It was like ballet. It was just click. It was a beautiful moment, really. I believe this is a YA or new adult book, and it follows a girl who's kind of like down on her luck, and then all of a sudden she gets a letter from a guy named Tobias Hawthorne saying that he's left his entire millions upon millions of dollars to her. And I believe there's like a catch where she has to live in his mansion for a year. And I believe that his family, which consists of a bunch of like young boys, lived there with her, and they're very jealous because they feel like they should have gotten the inheritance. And there's a lot of puzzles and quirks and things that's supposed to reveal like a secret. So it sounds like a lot of fun. It sounds very action-packed and really mysterious. So I'm excited for this one. And if Holly by Golly Books likes it, I think Lady Jane's gonna like it. The next book that I purchased was Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I've seen this poking around on BookTube for a while now. I don't remember who's mentioned it exactly, but I recognized the cover when I saw it on the deal of the day. So I thought I would take a look, and it looks pretty interesting if you ask me. I believe Children of Time is a sci-fi novel in which Earth has been totally destroyed by humanity, and humans are kind of dying out on Earth, so they're looking to go to another planet or star to kind of start over again, kind of like the end of time, I guess. And everything's been like prepared there, but then it's been so long that another civilization has kind of taken over whatever planet that they were trying to go to, and so now it's like a warring civilization type of thing, and who's going to survive and who will be like the ruler of this new Earth. It sounds like a lot of fun. I don't really gravitate towards books set in space, but this sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun. The idea of like two civilizations duking it out just sounds phenomenal. The next book that I purchased is Shatter Me by Tahira Mafi. I heard about this book from Witty Novels, who was one of my favorite booktubers back in the day, and I still watch her video. She has such a great sense of humor. And I believe I kept hearing her say that this was one of her favorite books of all time. This book appears to be a dystopian in which a girl has the power to kill people just by a single touch. One touch is all it takes, falling in love with me. No. And so the government is seeing her as kind of like this weapon, but then she might fall in love with one of her targets, and things kind of get a little hairy there. And it sounds really good. It reminds me a lot of that show Pushing Daisies, if anybody remembers that. It was a long time ago, and I think it was only on for like one season. This guy had the gift of touch to resurrect the dead, but then if he touched them again, they stayed dead. And he fell in love with the girl that he resurrected, but they could never like physically hold hands or anything like that because then she would die again. So I don't know if this is like the same thing, and I don't know if that was relevant whatsoever, but it sounds like a lot of fun, and if Witty Novels liked it, I'm sure I'm gonna love it too. The next book that made its way onto my Kindle is The Bonewitch by Rin Chepeko. I didn't know too much about this, but it was totally a cover buy for me. I mean, look at this thing. It's gorgeous. Oh my goodness. But I believe that this is a dark YA fantasy in which there's a family of witches, and one of the witches, a young girl, raises her brother from the dead, and she realizes that she actually has like more power than the other witches, and that she's a necromancer. And she goes to get this training in this high up like rank witch, because you can't be like a basic witch, you gotta be like, you know, the up here witch type of thing, kind of like me. But and then I think there's like some secret, and people are after her and gonna persecute the witches, because the witches are always gonna persecute it. I don't know, why can't we all just live in harmony? Let the witches do their thing. Goodness. So it sounds like a really fun action adventure book. The next book that I purchased is Tale as Old as Time, A Twisted Tale by Liz Braswell. This is a reimagining of Disney's Beauty and the Beast, and it's kind of a twist because it's based off the premise if Belle's mother had been the one to enchant the Beast and to condemn him to his fate, and then Belle comes along trying to like undo the spell. And to me, that's just drama. Like, you know, your mother scorns this man and curses him, and then your own daughter like comes around being like, but I love him, mommy. Like, and tries to break the spell that her own mother put on this man. Oh my goodness, that sounds like a drama-filled book. That's like the Real Housewives of Disney, to be honest. I think there's a whole series of all of these types of reimaginings, so this is the first one that kind of caught my eye, and we'll see how it goes. The next book that I bought is A Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose. This is categorized as a psychological thriller, and it sounds so intriguing. The basis of this novel is that this woman seems to have like the perfect marriage. She's a high-powered lawyer, he's a handsome rich husband, but the husband has a secret, and his secret is that he has a mistress. And then one day when the mistress turns up dead, the wife has to defend the husband in the criminal justice system, and it's all about their family dynamic and their marriage and the mystery of whether or not he did it or not. It sounds like a lot of fun, and it was, I believe, one of the Amazon's top 50 bestsellers recently, so I'll try it. I've been really into family thrillers lately, so this sounds like it's going to be right up my alley. The next book that I purchased was The Disappearance of Temperance by Wendy Webb. Now I know I just did a rant video on another Wendy Webb book called The Haunting of Bryn Wilder, and in my defense, I bought this before I actually read The Haunting of Bryn Wilder. In this story, a woman purchases a building to turn it into a community art center, or basically a place for artists to retreat and express their creativity. And she doesn't realize that the history of the building is deeply centered in it being a tuberculosis sanatorium. So it sounds like there's a lot of haunted, creepies going on here because a lot of people have passed through this place and it has kind of a dark history. So it sounds like it's going to be creepy. Now, if you've heard my rant on Haunting of Bryn Wilder, that also sounded like it was going to be creepy, and it so wasn't. So now I'm a little bit skeptical about this book. I don't know if it's going to be creepy or if it's just going to be a big letdown like Bryn Wilder was. So I'm not in a big rush to get to this one, but we shall see. We shall see. The next book I purchased was It's That Time of Year by Rosen Meany. I don't know what came over me to buy this. I think I was in the holliest and jolliest of moods when I was shopping on Kindle. But this seems to be a feel-good type of Hallmark novel where all these people are going back to this town for a wedding in Ireland, and there's kind of a twist at the wedding, and will each character find the person that they love. It sounds very mushy. I think I honestly let the train leave the station on my opportunity to read this because it's not Christmas time anymore. So I don't know if I'll read it come next Christmas time. I don't know if it's going to be one of those books that just decays on my shelf, but I bought it. I'll own up to that I bought it. The next book I purchased was Nosferatu by Joe Hill. I saw two of my favorite booktubers of all time, Slowly Read and David's Book Reviews, do a buddy read on this book. So when I saw that it was for sale, I picked it up like no one's business. I cannot recall too much about this book, honestly, but I know it's really creepy. Joe Hill writes some really creepy books. I read Heart-Shaped Box by his, and I really enjoyed it years ago. So, I mean, I don't think this could go badly by any means. I believe this has to do with a man named Charlie who was trapping kids' souls and things like that. So it's really creepy, and it's kind of Christmassy, but really dark. I'm just going to have to read it and find out for myself, but it sounds so good. And if Slowly Read and David's Book Reviews liked it, then you know it's going to be a good book. The next book I bought was House of Blood and Earth by Sarah J. Maas. This is the second Sarah J. Maas on my recent list, so I'm a big fan of hers. I have no problem with that. But I know that some people do not seem to care for Sarah J. Maas's books, but I do. I purposely kind of kept myself away from knowing too much about this book because I want to go into it blind and get the full experience. I know that Sarah J. Maas writes some really great romances, in my opinion. So I'm hoping that there's going to be a lot of romance, a lot of intrigue, and there might be some political dynamics and fantasy, maybe some fae and humans interacting. I'm so excited. I can't wait. I'm so happy I purchased this one. And the final book that I purchased in this haul is My Daddy is a Hero by Lena DeHalle. This is a exploration on the psychology behind the Chris Watts case. I love true crime. I am a big fan of true crime books and anything that kind of explores the behind the scenes of cases that are happening. I had watched the documentary American Murder, The Family Next Door on Netflix, which outlines and gives real footage of the Chris Watts case. And it's something that's really fascinated me. It centers on this man who had this like all-American family, and he had 2 beautiful kids and a baby on the way and a gorgeous wife. And then a few years ago, they were killed, and the kids were put in an oil tank while the mother was buried with a shallow grave while still carrying her baby. It was such a brutal and shocking murder at the time, and a lot of people still have intrigue about why Chris Watts allegedly did it, and the legal process and the whole criminal justice process of the case. So this sounds like it's going to be a lot of material looking at that particular case. So I think this is actually going to include like a psychological profile of why Chris Watts allegedly did what he did. So it sounds very interesting. It's kind of like that Mind of a Murderer type of vibe. While I think this book is going to be heartbreaking and hard to read, I think it is going to be very interesting and insightful. And that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Before we get started, I want to ask my amazing viewership some questions. 1, do you think this audio is better than my other videos? I am researching some methods and some technology on getting better audio, so I would really appreciate anyone's insight on whether this is better audio or not compared to my other videos. Please leave a comment down below on that. And my second question is, do I actually give really good background stories into books when I'm hauling them? I find describing books that I haven't read very difficult to discuss. So I'm wondering if my audience would rather have me read out the synopsis or blurbs of a book and have a reaction to that along with my impressions of the book. But I want to kind of gauge what my audience wants in these type of videos. So if you could please leave a comment down below and let me know, I would really, really appreciate it. I want to bring the best Lady Jane content to you, my dear viewer. And I've been acquiring quite a few. The next book that I purchased is The Stillwater Girls. I don't know too much about this one. I believe it's about and why they had to live off the grid on the first place. The next book that I purchased is It's like his time stopped, Jim. Oh my gosh, are you okay? The next book that I purchased is The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Oh, I got that right, hey. The next book that I purchased is Children of the Earth. Nope, Children of Time, Jane. Nope, you were way off. Woo, you're in left field somewhere, Jane. I think this is a sci-fi in which Earth has kind of been destroyed by humanity. Ooh, sounds familiar, doesn't it? Shade, side-eye. I believe that this is a sci-fi novel in which urchins come crawling out of people's noses. That's the sci-fi novel. Could you imagine if someone actually like went to their publisher and the publisher was like, "What are you doing?" And they're like, "These urchins that come out of their noses." And the publisher's like, "Brilliant, let's do it." Really? I don't know. That would be Lady Jane's book. That would be the book that I write. The basis of this novel is that, and she doesn't realize the history of it being a tuberculosis. It sounds really mushy, mushy. And I had watched The American Murder, The Family Next Door. I had watched and I believe it's about like a psychological profile on Chris Watts and this person's belief on why he might have done what he did what. So that sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun to read. Is that fun to read? He murdered his family. Don't say fun to read, Jane. No.